More than 2,500 years ago, when great empires dominated the ancient world, the fate of entire nations could change with a single conquest. Cities were burned, temples were looted, and defeated populations were often forced into exile. In that turbulent era, the history of the Jewish people reached one of its darkest moments. In 586 BC, Jerusalem had been destroyed by the powerful Babylonian Empire. The Temple of Solomon, the spiritual heart of the Jewish people, was reduced to ruins. Thousands of men, women, and children were taken captive and transported to Babylon, far from their ancestral homeland. For decades they lived in exile, wondering if they would ever again see the hills of Judah or the walls of Jerusalem. Yet history was about to change in a surprising way. In 539 BC, a new power rose across the ancient world, the Persian Empire. Its ruler was Cyrus the Great, king of Persia and founder of one of the largest empires of antiquity. When his armies marched into Babylon, many expected another brutal conquest like those that had come before. But Cyrus ruled differently. Instead of crushing the cultures of conquered peoples, he allowed many nations to preserve their traditions and religions. Among his most remarkable decisions was one that would forever shape Jewish history. Cyrus declared that the Jewish exiles could return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. For a people who had lived in captivity for decades, this announcement was extraordinary. Caravans soon began traveling westward across deserts and mountains toward the land their ancestors had once called home. They carried tools, animals, and supplies for rebuilding. According to ancient records, sacred objects that had been taken from the temple in Jerusalem were even returned by order of the Persian king. For many Jews, Cyrus was not merely a foreign ruler. In biblical texts, he appears as an unexpected instrument of divine purpose. The prophet Isaiah even mentions him as someone chosen to fulfill a role in restoring the people of Israel. Under the Persian Empire, the region of Judea slowly began to rebuild. The Second Temple rose once again in Jerusalem, and leaders such as Ezra and Nehemiah guided the spiritual and cultural restoration of the community. Yet not all Jews returned to Jerusalem. Many remained throughout the vast Persian Empire, where thriving Jewish communities developed in cities and provinces far from the land of Israel. For centuries, Persia became one of the places where Jewish life could continue with relative stability. Another famous episode from this period appears in the biblical story of Esther. According to the book of Esther, a young Jewish woman became queen within the Persian royal court. During that time, a powerful official named Haman plotted to destroy the Jewish people throughout the empire. But Esther courageously revealed the plot to the king and prevented the massacre. The Jewish people were saved, and the event is still remembered today in the Jewish festival of Purim. Stories like this strengthen the idea that Persia had, at crucial moments in history, served as a refuge and protector for the Jewish people. Centuries passed. Empires rose and fell. Greeks, Romans, Arabs, and Mongols would eventually rule over different parts of the ancient Persian lands. Yet Jewish communities continued to live in Persia for more than 2,000 years. In cities such as Isfahan, Shiraz, and Hamadan, generations of Jews preserved their traditions while living among diverse cultures. Even in modern times, the relationship between Persia known today as Iran and the State of Israel experienced periods of cooperation. During much of the 20th century, particularly between the 1950s and the late 1970s, Iran and Israel maintained diplomatic and strategic relations. The two countries shared regional interests and worked together in areas such as agriculture, trade, water management, and technology. For many historians, this partnership echoed an ancient pattern of connection between the two peoples. However, history once again shifted course. In 1979, the Islamic Revolution transformed Iran's political system. The new government adopted a strong opposition to Israel, and diplomatic relations between the two nations ended. The alliance that had existed for decades suddenly disappeared. Despite these changes, a small Jewish community has continued to live in Iran, descendants of those ancient populations that had settled there during the Persian Empire. Looking back across the centuries, the relationship between Persia and the Jewish people reveals a complex and fascinating history. There were moments of protection, refuge, and cooperation. There were long periods of cultural coexistence, as well as times of tension and transformation. Yet within the ancient pages of history remains the memory of a remarkable decision made more than 2 millennia ago when a Persian king allowed an exiled people to return to their homeland and rebuild their sacred temple. In a world where empires often ruled with iron and fire, that act of tolerance left a lasting mark, a forgotten alliance, a gesture that changed the destiny of a nation, and a story whose echoes still resonate through history.
Scribes, record this decree. Our realm shall pop full time.